Late night, they ain't getting no rest. Work so hard, people think I'm obsessed. Cream at the crop, won't settle for no less. Headed to the top, arena so focused. Yeah, gorilla of the jungle, I've been beating on my chest. I learned from the struggle, it was all just a test.
Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about what I want to call the NVIDIA triple play. So it's three different companies looking to capitalize on a specific narrative. So we did recently get some advancements from NVIDIA saying they're going to be investing $500 billion into developing an AI supercomputer within the US. We've seen continued push for that kind of domestic AI production, as well as kind of a lot of demand on that AI side. So we're going to take a look at a few different companies here. We're going to jump into the charts. The first one we're going to talk about is NVIDIA itself. Obviously the big dog when it comes to AI related companies. So they are a leading GPU manufacturer. They power AI and high performance computing. They are the biggest player in the space, so definitely capturing a lot of market share. They did really well to kind of fill that niche for AI compute. So we are seeing I expect that trend to kind of continue as the AI race continues as well. So we're going to take a look at the chart here, see what it looks like, see what's going on. So we're going to start here on our weekly chart, get an idea of what's going on in the high time frame here. So we did recently kind of come up to these highs, coming up, putting in that double top formation up here. So we had a double top kind of price pattern. We had bearish looking candles. When we look at our momentum indicators, you also saw here that we have that bearish divergence. So that's what I talk about. Keep an eye up for those. When you see higher highs on price action like that, and you see lower highs on the RSI or the indicator like the MACD, that's that bearish divergence, which means the trend is losing strength and likely could be due for a bit of a retracement. That's what we saw, and we waited patiently, and we got some decent little entries in NVIDIA to add to the long-term position. So next step, we need to see what's the next probable area to hopefully either bounce, put in that higher low, and continue to the upside, because we do see, the directional movement index looks all right for now. It's kind of, reset itself. We want to see that blue line curling back up. The MACD is slowing down a bit here with that major extension, kind of getting into oversold territory and then curling back up as well. We want to see that continue to curl over. The RSI also, we want that to kind of go towards that bullish cross, but we'll flip to the daily chart because it's going to give us a better idea of what's actually happening kind of in the recent days, weeks, and what we can expect over the coming weeks. So similar kind of setup here on the DMI, still neutral, nice and reset, ready for that push up. RSI right here in neutral territory, and MACD, we did get our bullish cross, but we're kind of just consolidating in here. So in terms of the daily chart, we're not looking at anything too exciting yet. We aren't at those crazy oversold levels. We did get down to it over here, so we'll continue watching this. We're going to be looking at the price action. What we want to see is either we want to take out these highs right in through here. So you can see we do have this resistance. There's a tiny bit there. So we got a resistance right there we're going to be coming into if we do get a continued push up. That's kind of where I would expect us to meet a little bit of resistance. You can also see this is the 50-day moving average right here. So lots of the times we do come up and retest this 200-day moving average. So if we do get that move up to here, we're looking for that higher low entry, potentially in this trend line. If we can regain this trend line, and then we'll take a look, and our momentum indicators are sufficiently reset by the time we come back, retest this, and then start to hopefully move up, then that could be a decent opportunity for a potential swing entry. Even just dollar cost averaging into NVIDIA around $100 isn't the worst idea in my opinion. You just have to be prepared for further downside if we get that breakdown. So just paying attention to that. If this is the top rate here, we'll take our Fibonacci, pull it from the low to the high. Our target is going to be somewhere within that 0.5 to 786 Fibonacci range here. Unfortunately, if we do return here, that's kind of not the most bullish price action. We would lose this trend line. So maybe we do something like this where we come back and retest. Maybe we have to retest the lows, ideally holding that higher low. That's the more bullish case scenario before we can try to re-attack this upper trend line here. Alternatively, we could get the more bullish or favorable price action kind of pump into the 50-day, the 200-day, come back, put in that higher low on the trend line there, and then we're looking at more of a move like this. So kind of trying to take advantage of that retest higher low if the indicators look good at the time, but we're not making that decision right now because we're not sure. We're in no man's land, so waiting patiently. Either price action goes up in the bullish case scenario, we get our higher low entry, or we go into the bearish case scenario. We're still in no man's land. We wait for that higher low confirmation on the higher time frame, something like the 3-day or the weekly chart, and that's our entry. So just paying attention to that, just looking at opportunities. We'll take a look at the very high time frame because I want to show you where I'm looking. This is my accumulation zone for NVIDIA right now based on the Fibonacci retracements. So if again I take my Fibonacci retracement tool from right here, this is our first breakout point, and pull it to the top, you can see that aligns right in here. So we've got our 618 Fibonacci, we've got our 200-week moving average here. The 786 is going to be very good value. If we come back to under $45 a share for NVIDIA, I'm definitely going to want to take advantage of that, so paying attention there. But we can kind of see dating back to about 2010 actually, so I'll zoom out here, pretty much since 2000, after the great financial crisis, when they got above this 200-week moving average, it's kind of retested it multiple times. So every time we come back and retest the 200-week, it has acted as support. So I've got that drawn in right there. If we come back to that zone with confluence of the 200-week moving average, it could be a good opportunity to accumulate NVIDIA. So we're going to be just paying attention to that. One of the reasons that we do like NVIDIA is just because they do have that market share. They are the big dog when it comes to AI. They're far ahead of their peers like AMD, Intel. They're the flagship GPUs. So I do expect that continued push for AI going forward here, and likely that continued market dominance by NVIDIA. So we're going to move down the list here. So we see, NVIDIA, we're just waiting patiently. Either we're going to come back, come to this zone, put in that higher low, look for that potential entry here with a stop loss below support. Otherwise, we're going to push up, wait for that higher low within this trend here, get in, and then we're going to take that trade and ride it to the target. So I'm going to flip over to CORWV here. This is a new company. I have briefly talked about it a couple times. Very new, so it's going to be a little bit riskier than NVIDIA, that's for sure. There are a few different dynamics that we need to know or be aware of. So pretty much we see that NVIDIA and CORWV have a partnership. NVIDIA has invested in CORWV in their IPO. They invested $250 million at $40 a share. We can see CORWV currently trading at about $42.50 a share. So they're trading just above what NVIDIA invested in them at that price. So not the worst in terms of value. That being said, they do have a lot of debt because they're a newer company. They're going to be a major data center provider for AI, for NVIDIA, as well as Stargate, Microsoft. All these major companies, they do have substantial partnerships with them. So we're taking a look at them on a technical perspective. They had this kind of, a little bit of a pump up on their IPO, but not a lot of demand here. There's kind of a lot of market uncertainty, volatility there, so not the best time to IPO. We got a big run up here in the following kind of days, and then that's ultimately sold off. We came back just below our 786 Fibonacci, and we're just consolidating here. So we're in a bit of kind of a wedge pattern. We can see we've got this trend line here, and we've got another trend line right about here. So we're just following this. If we can break out of this wedge, something like this, get onto that higher high, higher low price action above our VRVP point of control, that's still ideally the best opportunity there. We'll take a look at the momentum indicators. Not looking great. We see a bearish cross on the RSI. MACD looks like it's slowing down, and we see a bearish cross on our DMI. So CORWV, I expect more downwards price action in the near term. Maybe we just come back into this channel. More consolidating needs to be done in there, but we're going to continue following this one. If we go to $40, I might dip my toes if I like the way that the stock market's looking. If not, I'm just going to wait patiently for that confirmed structure, but we'll see what happens. So CoreWeave is basically an AI cloud service provider. They specialize in GPU-based infrastructure. They're backed by NVIDIA. They rent the NVIDIA GPUs to clients like Microsoft, OpenAI, Mistral AI. They operate 32 different data centers. They want to double their data center capacity in 2025. So they're a big provider for the actual GPU hours service. So essentially you have NVIDIA develops the GPUs. You've got CoreWeave, who's kind of the middleman that rents the GPU hours out to the clients. So they are that hyperscaler, that data center provider. And then we're looking here, you know, if we go back into around 35 or less, so $35 to $40 might be what I look at potentially starting a position. This is a riskier play. They don't have a ton of current revenue. They did increase their revenue drastically from 2022 to 2024, almost $2 billion of revenue in 2024. So it's this huge increase, but they also landed these massive partnerships, and they also have deals with CORZ to supply them with compute power. So that's what I talk about. It's kind of this triple play on NVIDIA. NVIDIA is the kind of the base base company, builds the GPUs, provides them to CoreWeave. CoreWeave is the ones who not host them, but essentially they are the ones providing the infrastructure to run the GPUs, the GPU hours. And then we've got CoreWeave there. We've got CORZ Scientific. Sorry, with all these names, it's pretty confusing. But CoreWeave basically finding the clients to rent the GPUs, and now they need infrastructure to actually run those GPUs. So they need data center capacity. That's where CORZ Scientific comes in play here. So CoreWeave and CORZ Scientific currently have a 12-year deal for 590 megawatts of capacity. So that is to the tune of $8.7 billion over 12 years. So pretty awesome revenues. You know, you're looking at like $400 million per year in revenue just from AI HPC from that current contract. And it's also interesting to note that CORZ Scientific does have up to 900 megawatts available for AI HPC. With their deal with CoreWeave, CoreWeave is actually paying the cost to transition this infrastructure to AI and HPC, so saving that capex cost for CORZ Scientific. CORZ Scientific really just has to focus on the AI data center provider side of things, transitioning it, and they've been doing it successfully, so I expect them to continue. They do have the most the largest contract signed of any hybrid Bitcoin miner. You know, it's nothing to really scoff at. So I kind of did a little bit of math, and we saw with with CORZ Scientific, you know, we could see an additional even $380 million per year in revenue if they fully exercise that 900 megawatt capacity. So that's pretty crazy. You'd be looking at, you know, 750 million plus in revenue per year just from AI HPC. They also have 18 exahash worth of Bitcoin miners. So they have this blended business model. They make money from the Bitcoin mining to support the AI side of things. And then when the Bitcoin mining is a little bit less consistent, they've got the steady revenues from AI to kind of support that side of the business. So playing off on itself, you know, major partnerships, huge deals landed to the tune of billions of dollars, and substantial infrastructure when it comes to the actual Bitcoin mining side of things. When we're taking a look at the chart here, of CORZ Scientific, we did lose this upsloping trend line we were previously following. We're kind of in this downwards price action, but we're reaching this level of interest here. So there's also this major gap fill right in through here. So let's pay attention to this. You know, lots of the times these gaps do fill themselves, so we could come back to $5 for CORZ Scientific, but we are at a key level of interest, one that acted as support prior a couple times, and it also coincides with a high time frame Fibonacci 786 retracement. That being said, we're stuck under the VRVP point of control rate here, so we need to pay attention to that. We'll take a look, see how things look on kind of the higher time frame. So let's take a look at the daily chart. And we see pretty much losing some bullish momentum here, actually on the MACD. So we want to see that continue to reset itself. The DMI looks okay for now, but we're starting to see those positive and negative lines kind of diverge from each other again. We want to see that curling back up, and RSI is kind of chopping away. So a lot of these charts, you know, they're not too exciting right now. I'm not saying that we need to go and start buying these positions right now, but I want to bring them to your attention attention, bring to you kind of the thoughts behind the fundamentals, why I'm looking at these companies, and then come to the charts and show you what are the high value areas where they're likely to come. So we have an order block down here. So, looking at Core Scientific, not the worst time to buy now. If you're confident, you like the way the market looks, I do have exposure in Core Scientific. It's not a huge position, but I'm looking to build that position if it makes technical sense. So we can either see, maybe we'll come and put in a bit of more uptrend structure on the lower time frame. But until then, we're just chopping away. This isn't very bullish price action. The markets, while they're still trying to kind of recover, it's just sideways chop. There's still a lot of uncertainty, but I want to focus on a few of these companies that we want to kind of get our sights on. So when the time comes, then we just pull the trigger. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So I'm going to flip back to my screen over here, and then we're just going to finish off, kind of talk a little bit more about the relationship between the three companies. So relationship dynamics, we kind of have NVIDIA to CoreWeave. It's a symbiotic partnership. NVIDIA's GPUs fuel CoreWeave's cloud, and then CoreWeave's platform amplifies NVIDIA's market reach. So NVIDIA's partnership with CoreWeave does allow CoreWeave to have more preferential access and kind of probably better prices for the actual GPUs than some of their other competitors, or some of the other competitors who might be a little bit smaller. Then we see CoreWeave and Core Scientific. CoreWeave and Core Scientific is that strategic hosting partnership. CoreWeave is essentially leasing Core Scientific's data centers to deploy their NVIDIA GPUs, and then the NVIDIA to Core Scientific relationship is indirect but critical because Core Scientific is the infrastructure running the NVIDIA GPUs. They do have kind of that pseudo partnership. So NVIDIA drives the AI compute boom. CoreWeave addresses the cloud growth, providing the GPUs, and Core Scientific comes in to provide the infrastructure. So we're kind of playing three different layers of the AI system there. I really like the idea of playing picks and shovels. So when it comes to Bitcoin, that's like Bitcoin miners. Even when it comes to gold or precious metals, playing into the miners, they offer a bit more leverage returns on the underlying asset, I find, or the underlying narrative. So three companies I'm really interested in. We're going to continue following them going forward. I like NVIDIA. I potentially like CoreWeave. It's a little bit riskier in my opinion of the three, and I really like Core Scientific from their current valuations. Basically, in terms of ranking them as most undervalued to least undervalued, in terms of relative to their peers, I would say NVIDIA is kind of right in the middle of the pack. They're more valued than some of their peers, but they do kind of garnish that premium for their market share. CoreWeave, based on traditional valuation metrics, is a little bit overvalued. That being said, you have to take into account this strategic hosting partnership, the major client partnerships they have with Microsoft, OpenAI, these huge players, and likely their continued growth in the space. And then you've got Core Scientific, a very kind of fundamentally undervalued company, offering more relative valuation. They're a much smaller company, so there is a little bit of risk in terms of the lower market cap. Prices are more susceptible to manipulation, but I think the fundamental value is there, and at the right stock price, I'm definitely interested in accumulating any of these three companies and then kind of just building those positions, holding them, and waiting for that trend to reverse. So we'll continue following these three, watching them closely, look for our entries, and we'll take them when they come. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.